Hi everyone, welcome to the Maker Swap. We have collaborated with 4 different makers to create totally unique projects, and you will get to see the behind the scenes videos. We'll also be having exclusive interviews with each small business so you can learn a little bit more about them and you can shop from them, whether it's a workshop, a gift for someone, or stocking up on your craft supplies.
My name's Henry of Pop-Punk. I'm going to be making a ceramic vase for HappyFabric's Maker Swap 2021. Let's get straight into it. Hi, I've just gotten our vase out of the kiln and I've put one layer of glaze on the inside of it. So just before I put it in the kiln, I sharpened up these edges so that they're really flat, so it should take the vinyl a little bit better. Now the inside, I've put this really orange glaze on. So I put this really orange glaze on the inside of the pot. After this comes out of the kiln, it'll be a really deep blue colour. However, on the outside of the pot, I'm going to do a white glaze. That way, there'll be a nice blank canvas for the vinyl to take. So let's do it. So I just got my piece out of the kiln and it is looking really, really nice. It's super glossy. The inside has got this lovely blue. So I just got to send it off. Hope HappyFabric likes it.
Hi guys, so I've just received this amazing vase made by Henry from Pop-Punk, and I'm going to be decorating it with some of our Happy vinyl, which is self-adhesive, and I think I'm going to go for a terrazzo theme, as there's this lovely sea blue glaze inside, and this will be great to hand cut and apply it to the vase. So let's get making.
That looks so cool.
I've done like a terrazzo, I think that's how you say it.
Yeah.
All over it. And I don't know if you'll be able to see, but I hand drew some shells and you got they're like really like subtle. But the cream bits of vinyl are like hand drawn shells that I've cut out and stuck on.
That's so cool. That looks wicked, man.
Oh, I'm pleased. I wanted to go with the theme of like inside, like sea themed, and I wanted to go themed outdoors sort of look. But it's got like metallic. I don't know if you're able to see.
I love that. The metallics are so cool.
How you got into your whole world of ceramics, and how you got started. Like, have you been doing it for a long time?
So I've been doing ceramics, I want to say, for about 5, maybe 6 years now. I studied sort of like the theory of ceramics at university, and I did some slip casting and hand building and stuff like that, but I didn't get taught how to throw. But I found an old kick wheel at the back of a studio in university, and so of an evening I'd just go in there and just try to use it just for fun and for like stress relief. And for the first 2 weeks, I didn't make anything apart from a mess. It was horrendous. But eventually I started making stuff, and I made like this one bowl, and it was the first thing that ever came off the wheel. And I was like, oh my goodness, I've actually made a bowl. And I still have it. I still eat my breakfast out of it. It's hilarious. It's the ugliest bowl you've ever seen in your life though. It is horrendous, but
one to keep though.
It's my special bowl, and so that means a lot to me. But and ever since then I just sort of got hooked, and just been sort of teaching myself little bits and bobs. I spent all of my savings on a wheel that I brought home and have in my shed.
What was your first sort of like proudest make, would you say? Was it your bowl that you first did, or?
Proudest make, I think the bowl was really cool because that was the first thing that actually got off the wheel, survived the firing, glazed, everything was cool about it, and I really liked that. But I think proudest make, I made a really big vase quite recently actually, and I carved all the bottom of it with a spoon, and so it looks all like textured and nice, and then it's got this really blue drippy glaze, but it's massive and absolutely humongous, and I was really happy with that. That was really good to throw, really good. I really like the sort of random / geometric-y sort of angles, but also with pots and stuff, they're all curvy as well, so you get like a quite contrast, all those sharp lines, but also really rounded shapes, so you get really nice contrast. And that inspired this wall, which I painted. So all of this is hand painted.
Is there like a certain form that you're inspired, like that inspires your form? Sorry, or like ceramic?
So like form wise, I really like feminine shapes, like really like curvy shapes. There's like an S curve that you get, which is like one of my favorite shapes to do ever. We have sort of like a flare at the top and a big belly at the bottom. And especially with like mugs and things like that, because it's something that you can wrap your hands around and really like hold. I think it like brings you into the piece a little bit more, and there's a lot more like communication between person and piece. So when you are having your cup of tea in the morning, and you've got this nice like texture on the bottom of the mug, but you're also sat there wrapped around it, there's like a lot going on between you and that piece. And I think that sort of weird subconscious finger-based communication is really interesting, and feminine shapes really like help that to happen. I think they're like quite heartwarming, and I think that's why the bottom of that vase is so rounded, because even though the top has those sharp angles, the bottom is like really round like a ball, and it's that sort of smooth, curvy, feminine bottom that like lifts it off the table. So when it's on like a table, it really lifts it up and makes it seem a bit weightless, which it's really great. Like I always think of pieces having like 3 levels of interaction almost, and there's sort of like distances. So the first one, when you first see a piece, you mainly just see the silhouette and maybe like the first predominant color, and that's got to really grab your attention. So it's got to have like a nice like strong silhouette that sets it apart. And then you go in to have a closer look, and you get to this like medium range where you start to see like the colors, and you start to see like how the form is like slightly changed and how it moves. And if that grips you even more, then you go in again and you start to see like the really intricacies of like the textures, and you start to see like any sort of like high detail points and things like that. And I think if you can capture your audience at each of those stages, then you've made a really, really good piece. So I try and keep that in my head of like, first of all, the most important is that silhouette. It's got to look like captivating. And then you go in a little bit, you've got to capture that audience again. And then you go in again, and it's that last one that will like make people love it. So yeah, you could just take them on the journey like through the piece. And I think that's really cool.
Is there a certain reason you choose those colours? Are they your favourite, or are they inspired by something?
Yeah. So like a lot of I've got like a few like things, like a few different styles that I sort of follow, and they're quite separate. So I've got like a sort of beachy ocean sort of vibe style, which has got a lot of blues. It's got really flowy glazes. It's a lot about texture. And then on the other side, I've got this like really like punky black and silver monochrome style as well. And they're quite distinct and quite different. But I think they both say something different about me. And I think I can't really be one without the other. So there is a big part of me that loves being at the beach and surfing and having barbecues on the beach with my friends and stuff like that. And that, you know, the really turquoisey blues and the sandy color of the raw clay, like it all brings that through and makes me feel really warm and toasty and stuff. But there is another massive part of me that is a bit sort of anti-authority and like a bit punk, and like I tattoo myself and like give myself piercings and stuff, and that's a big part of me. And like it may be, you know, not to some people's tastes, but I think it's really important to show that you can be, you know, more than one thing. You don't have to be locked into a box. You can like spread your wings and have multiple different styles. And so I think all of my colors and stylistic choices are just sort of, yeah, little fragments of my personality. And I think you can have many, many, many pieces. With the pieces I'm doing at the minute, the sort of punky black and silver and the ocean ones, the base form of each piece is the same. So like they're like quite spherical mugs. We'll take mugs for example. They're quite spherical mugs, and they've got this like big belly and a little flare at the top, so you can really get your hands around them. And I throw that base form, and then with the ocean ones, I carve it away with a spoon, and I put this drippy glaze on it and stuff. But using that same base form, I make all these indentations in it where I fit these metal spikes into it, and then paint that like black and like glaze it black. So they're like the same base form of having that sort of like feminine, like curvy, like bubble. But then with that base, you can then just go and put whatever you want on it. So it's quite cool that they do have that one similar like silhouette-ish. And then when you get into that second level, they're wildly different pieces. And they're like even more different the further you get into them. So I think that's quite interesting how like they can seem similar at the like right off, and they get more different the like more depthy you go.
You were in the great Pottery throwdown.
Indeed, yeah.
And you can see like your work throughout that as well. Firstly, like, how did you find the show? I know it's quite a big question. What did you think of the show, and how did you start to even get on there, like from it all?
Well, oh man, right. I'll break it down. So like how it felt to be on the show it's pretty incredible, to be honest, because obviously I'm just like a home potter really that does it as a hobby. The dreams of one day doing it as a career, but nowhere close to it yet. And yeah, I work in my shed, like in the garden it's terrible. And then I had like friends and family and my girlfriend say, oh, you should try and apply. Just send in an application. Just what's the worst that can happen? You're not going to lose anything. And I was like, all right, I'll send in an application. I'll just do it. It was like a massive whirlwind. It's suddenly like, all right, I'll send an application in just to placate everyone, right? Just to make everyone get off my back a little bit. And then the next day I was like, well, I'm at the Pottery. What do I do now? This is crazy. It was, a massive whirlwind. But being there was wild. There was so many people that knew so many different things about pottery and stuff like that. Because we all lived together because of COVID, we all bubbled up and stuff. And so we lived together for the entirety of how long we were there. And we became like super duper close, and they're all like really good friends now. Like we all are in like a group chat, And so like every Sunday we're like messaging each other and stuff. And then like if someone has like a question about glazes or something, they'll send it into the group chat, and then all the other potters will come back with, oh, I know this, or I know that, or blah, blah, blah. And so like now it's like this little like unit of like a clay family that we're all like sharing stuff and helping out, and yeah, it's proper cool.
Out of all your projects that you've done, which is probably so many, because you were doing at least 2 projects, weren't you, every like episode?
Yeah.
And like technical challenge and what was the other one called? Just like a challenge.
It's just like a main make, I guess. So you have your main make, and then you have your like spot test or throwdown.
Yeah. Is there like one project that you thought that is like my favourite project?
Favourite project. I really liked doing the Raku week, because I'd never tried Raku before, and it was like super adventurous and super wild, and everyone loves Raku because it's so instant and just like so there, which is amazing. So I really love doing that. But I really struggled with the second week where we built like these big 3D buildings. I really struggled because I was like way behind schedule. Like I was too slow. I was still building it while I was carrying it into the drying room sort of thing. But I actually really loved it, and the piece that came out I was really happy with, and like I got all these like little detail bits in that I'd never really done before. And yeah, even though it was like proper difficult and I really struggled, that one really was like proper enjoyable.
Wow. And do you get to keep your projects afterwards? Like, do you get to take them home?
No. I think we get them later. I think they're the property of the production company for X amount of time, and then I think eventually they get released back to us, which would be nice, because I'd quite like to see some of them again. Actually, some of them, obviously I haven't seen them since they were judged, and then they were just taken away from me, and I never saw them again. So it'd be nice to see that building again and see if it was actually as good as I remember, or if maybe I was just looking at it through like adrenaline-fueled, rose-tinted glasses, and it looked much better to me on the day than actually it would now.
Yeah, it did look good on TV, so.
Well, thank you very much. Very good. Maybe that's okay then.
Like, is there anything you've made that's been really unusual, like really out there, or?
Yeah, so there's sort of 2 that, well, I'll go for the main one that's like the most unusual, because it's got such a weird process to it. So I wanted to make vases that showed the human body how I think it should be shown. And I am a big fan of, like self-love, and a big fan of, just representing who you are and being true to yourself, and loving yourself for what you are, because you can't be anything else. So you might as well just love what you got. And so I wanted to make these 2 vases. I wanted to make an Aphrodite and an Adonis. And in mythology, they're meant to be like the perfect specimens of humans. And so to me, they are the perfect specimens of humans. And they're like a little bit wonky. They've got a bit of chub. They've got one boob bigger than the other. They've got like a wonky butt. Their shoulders are lopsided. The male one is shorter than the female one, for instance. Like, yeah, so they're like imperfect, but they're real. And because they're like fully made in, ceramic with really nice glazes on, they are beautiful pieces. And so I think they speak to me on many different levels. And I hope that translates to being able to speak to other people on many different levels. But the process from like making them is wild. So it starts off really sci-fi. So I've got like a virtual reality headset, right, that I put on with my controllers, and I sculpt the initial model of the body in virtual reality. So I'm sat there and there's like this virtual clay in front of me that I'm like pulling about, and you can make it massive, so you can do like tiny little details and shrink it back down again. And then and all of this, and you can slice it in half and move the bits, and it's crazy technology, like computer design, but I'm not very good on a keyboard, a mouse, or a tablet, so I can actually use my hands like I would normally sculpt stuff, but in virtual reality. So I'm computer designing with my hands, which is mental. And then once I've got that sculpt and I'm happy with it, I export that file to my computer and send it to a 3D printer that I build. and then I print out my model, whatever size I want it, and it comes off the print bed, and it's like made in plastic and whatever being printed out. I then make a plaster mold of that. So I think they're 3-part molds with a spare on the top, so 4 parts. And so I've got a full plaster mold of it. I dry that out, and then I use that to slip cast. So I use liquid clay as slip to cast into that, and then pull it out of the mold, fettle it and smooth it down. And then I've got a clay ceramic version of something that I made in virtual reality, which is crazy. And like, so it starts off super sci-fi, and the process gets more traditional the further along I go. And so in the last stages, I'm like going in with like a scalpel and a tiny sponge, and like cleaning up like the neckline and cleaning up the fettle lines and things like that. And then I, brush glaze it all and kiln it how you would normally. But yeah, and I think it's like, so that project or those pieces speak to me on like a million different levels, because not only is the piece really special to me and says a lot to me emotionally, but the process of joining like super sci-fi modern techniques of making to really traditional like making as well, like the process to me is just as important as the final piece. So they sort of do everything together, and it's super flipping crazy. Like I could not, if I saw myself now like 3 years ago, I'd be like, nah, that's not possible. Like you can't do that, it's just not a thing. But now I'm doing it, and I'm like, I still can't believe that it works. Like it happens.
So cool. And you sell them on your website as well with your...
Yeah, they're all up on my website. So there's Aphrodites and Adonis's on there. And I think, because I really love those molds, but I think in like a month or two, I'm going to do another like master model. I'm going to sculpt a new one. And so the body shape will be slightly different. And then I'll make a mold of that and start a new line on a set, like slightly different body shape. And I think I'll do that quite regularly. I think because I want these pieces to live on with me, and they're going to evolve and change as I evolve and change. So their body types are going to change like mine does.
So how often do you update your shop with those kinds of things? Is it?
So I only have the one kiln, right? So I have to wait for like a whole kiln load to like fire stuff. So normally at the minute it's like every 3 weeks I sort of update my shop, and I do like big announcements on Instagram. I'm like, oh, the shop's updating at this time, this day, and blah blah. And the last time I did my shop update, I did all these Instagram announcements. I put everything up there and was like, hey, it's open, go crazy, wow! And all of my stuff sold out within an hour and a half.
Yeah, that is crazy that you sold out so quickly. Like,
I know.
So good. If people are beginning ceramics for the first time ever, and they may have only used maybe air dry clay at home or something like that, have you got any tips for starting off really, or like techniques? Yeah,
starting off is really easy. You don't need much to do ceramics at all. If you want to start out ceramics, go onto a website like Pottery Craft or Pot Clays or something like that, and just order a bag of clay it doesn't matter what kind, whatever, literally just a bag of clay. Order it, and it's like less than a tenner, gets sent to your house, slap it on your table and just start playing with it. You need a sponge and your hands. You could probably do it with your feet if you wanted to, I don't know. And then there's loads of videos around on the internet or on TV of people coiling, or like people hand building stuff. The pottery throwdown is great because it doesn't just show people throwing, it shows people hand building and doing sculptural work and stuff like that. And then you can have these clay things, and don't, what I'd say to like people that are just starting out is don't be too precious. Clay is, like as said, you can get a bag for less than a tenner. Like it's just mud. Like if it goes wrong and if you break a piece, just make a new one. It's not the end of the world. The amount of pots I break is unbelievable. I'm really clumsy. I'm like the clumsiest ceramicist ever. So I break loads of stuff, and it doesn't bother me because it's just mud. I can just do another one. It's not an issue. So yeah, and then once you've got your pieces, obviously you need to buy them and stuff like that. There's loads of you'll be surprised at how many potters are around the country. And if you just, start Googling local potters and stuff, shoot them an email and just say, I've been doing some clay stuff at home. Can I, use your kiln? Would you mind? Can I pay you a little bit of money to fire my stuff? Potters are really friendly people. They're really friendly. All of them are friendly people. If the throwdown has shown me anything, it's that potters are amazing.
Do you have any big plans for Pop Punk this year into next year?
Yeah, so Pop Punk as a company, I want to create a facility, a building, a space that will be called Pop Punk, and that space will have throwing wheels, hand building stations, slip casting benches, mold making facilities, glazing stations, drying racks, kilns, packing stations, everything. It will have everything you could possibly need for ceramics in there, and more stuff as well, and loads of space in it as well. And from there, I can not only create my own work and use that space to create my work, but I want to teach workshops and classes and evening classes and classes to schools and things like that. And yeah, I can use that space because schools have so much STEM funding now. They don't have much arts funding, and the curriculums don't take in arts as much anymore. And I never did ceramics at school. It wasn't a thing. We just didn't have the facilities. And a lot of schools don't, but it's a really interesting thing because not only is it good to learn tactilely with your hands, but the history of ceramics feeds massively into the history of the industry of England. And England had a massive ceramics industry that led to a big economic boom in the UK, and that's really good to learn about. It's a really good thing. And if you can learn that history alongside physical making, it sticks in your head so much more, which is really good. So I can use that space to, I can either take my stuff to a school or have the schools come to me and use that. But I also want that space to be used by local artists or art students at universities or things like that haven't got the facilities. But as I said, if you want to start ceramics at home and don't have a kiln, totally fine. Just fire your stuff at Pop Punk. They'll do it. It's totally cool. And you can go there, and if you are making stuff at home and you fire it there, and then you see, the classes at Pop Punk, maybe I'll drop into a class every now and again, whatever, blah, blah. And then hopefully every 6 months, I'll clear the whole studio space, and every young artist that has worked there or has produced work at Pop Punk in that 6 months will have a space where they can exhibit their work, and we'll have a full exhibition of the last 6 months of artists. Hopefully be a ceramics-based creative hub that I can work from, I can teach from, I can go into education centres from, I can rent the space and equipment out to young artists and old artists and local artists, and it will just be a big ceramics-based creative hub for the area that is massively community-based, brings everyone together, and hopefully propels ceramics into something wonderful.
Oh, I think that'll be amazing to see. I think it will bring lots of people together and be able to do, like you say, get taught workshops or get their work out there further.